Well, hey there, it's Alka.
And Jen, and in this episode of the Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast, we're going to talk about how to improve your designs to make more sales on Zazzle.
The designing is obviously the most important part of your Zazzle product, because if the design isn't good or like it sucks, then unfortunately you're not going to get any sales because the customer is going to go, I don't like that. And so we want you to make money. So let's talk about some things that you can do to make the chances higher that you can make sales. And they all are related to creating the designs. And you don't have to be like an expert designer and create something absolutely fantastic or original. It's really more so how you present the designs that you're already working on and promoting even. But if they're not selling, consider some of these things as checkboxes and check marks that you can put next to a list of every time you post something on Zazzle. Are you following these 4 checklist marks or checklists items? And so let's go through them because they are really helpful, because you're leaving money on the table, as I like to call it. If you don't, you may not even notice that you're leaving money on the table. You think, okay, you put up this great design, but why are you not getting sales? This happens especially if you don't have views in your Zazzle. Like if you have views on your Zazzle products, but you don't have sales, then something's stopping your customer from buying what they thought they were coming to buy when they came to your product with the keywords that they were searching. So let's take a step back though, because I just went really fast on this. It's like, we don't want to insult your designing skills. In fact, you probably have better design skills than we do. However, what happens is you don't do certain things that are really focused on having the customer have a really good experience on the Zazzle marketplace. And so, like I said, when you have views on a product and that's supposed to be selling, but you're not making those sales, this is when you need to think about these things that we're going to talk about today. Do you have any more comments before we get started?
I wanted to also jump back a little even further, that you can make money online on Zazzle without having any Photoshop or design experience. You don't need to have like crazy expensive editing programs or Photoshop programs to actually make money on Zazzle. Zazzle has a really amazing design tool that's integrated into their platform, and a lot of our students and Zazzle designers make money online by just using the design tool that's on their platform, and then also having no experience in Photoshop or even Adobe Illustrator or anything like that. You can make money online without having previous experience. So, but this topic for our podcast is all about the design as a whole. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to have a Photoshop program for you to use these tips that we're going to speak about in this podcast episode. You can literally take these tips and start designing on Zazzle just using the design platform.
Exactly.
No matter at what level you are in terms of like photo editing or a Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator, etc. You are at ground zero here. You don't have to have any experience, or maybe you're super experienced, but the design tips that we're going to talk to you cover each and every person in terms of what level they're at a designer.
Exactly. And so let's go into 2 options, right? You're going to either just use the tool itself, the Zazzle design tool, and you're going to use text and shapes to create products that are going to be really cool that people will want to buy. That is already really like where you can start, and you can be very successful at that. In fact, for the first 4 or 5 years of my Zazzle career, that's all I did. I started bringing in graphics later, and I did sell my art and photography. That's different, but I wanted to just let you know that a lot of my designs are text-based, and therefore that's how you can make money as well. However, the reason that my designs sold and took off is because of some of the things that had to do with design and having the customer in mind, in order for the customer to really go, wow, I like this, this is cool. And then for them to be able to buy it easily and to make the product in such a way that it will work for them. And what I mean by that is all the customization that Zazzle offers. And so this is one of the things that we're going to talk about with the design tips today. The second aspect is, like I said, I sold my art and photography online, And especially at the beginning, when there weren't as many great opportunities in terms of tools and stuff out there, it was really, really hard to get the image quality to look good. I still remember being like outside in the right kind of light in order to take that, literally film photo sometimes, in order to get that right image that I could then scan and then put into a digital format and upload onto the Zazzle marketplace. Boy, that dates me. But it's true, that's how I started out. So on a really nice day when the light was great outside, I would grab all my canvases and things that I had as artwork, and I would go out and do a photo shoot of my artwork so I could upload it onto Zazzle. Awesome, right? So thank goodness there's a little bit more going on these days with easily getting it to a digital format. But the main thing is that if you're going to put up an image of anything like either your own photography or your own artwork, then, or even like something that you've worked on that you're scanning in, make sure that you do a really good job of transferring it to a digital format. So that's tip number one, is whatever you're using as an image that you're uploading onto Zazzle, it has to be really great quality. So image quality is number one and key as to how to make sure that your designs look good, because if they're out of focus, or if they're grainy, or if there's the way you took the picture doesn't actually do anything for the customer. Like if the photography doesn't have a central focal point, or if your canvas art is square and you're trying to make it into a rectangular type of product print field on Zazzle, you're going to have issues, right? And so you want to make sure that your image is going to work really, really well on the Zazzle product itself by being good quality and also fitting in the space and the proportions or dimensions. So that's always my big beef, because most of you have incredible artwork or graphics or photography, but you're just not placing it and using the right quality image and or part of the image, maybe even so, to strategically add it to a particular product that will then sell better than if it was not put on with that good image quality. Okay, so any more on image quality and size?
No, but it's very, very important, because I think that especially if you're going to be doing image-based designs, you want to make sure that the image quality is perfect, because you as a designer are only able to see the digital version of it. When a customer purchases it, it's going to come out obviously on a physical product. And so for you as a designer, you need to be 100% sure that that quality is going to be good enough to transfer onto a physical product within the amount of dimensions that needs to be, right? Because if your product is a wall tapestry or a large canvas, you need to make sure that the image that you've taken is compatible with those dimensions in real space, so to speak, at the actual physical product. And
so there's that DPI thing, which took me forever to figure out, even though I know so much about Zazzle. But so 300 DPI at least is very important, which means digital pixels per square inch or something like that. And so you need that so that, like people, as Jen said, you can blow things up to bigger proportions, because the Zazzle marketplace has the option for customers to take it from your design from one product and put it on something completely different, right? Which is cool for you. You can make money, but only if you have the ability to make the image that big. And
Zazzle's really good at warning the designer when you're creating the product. It'll give you a warning and say this image has been blown up bigger than its actual original size. But sometimes if we've taken the actual photo not in the greatest quality, so to speak, where it's blurry or something's out of focus, and we uploaded the digital copy is good in terms of its dimensions and the DPI, but the actual photo is not so good. So you have to make sure that you have the quality of the actual photo and then also the quality of the actual dimensions of the digital file size too.
Yes. Yeah. And you have to remember you're competing with National Geographic and Getty Images. So that's the cool part about being on Zazzle, is you literally can be side by side with the images from really high quality sites that sell basically photography, but you have to deliver, right? And so by doing that, start with a really great image quality and image content.
Yes.
All right. So tip number 2, which is design placement. I touched on it a little bit already when I talked about the square or the rectangular, like a square product but rectangular image. And if you're going to run up against that, where you're trying to place something on, let's say, a cell phone case, which is rectangular, but it's a horizontal image, and those cell phones are mainly held vertically, then your image is not going to fit really well unless you do change it and make it, like, flip it. But not many people are going to buy that. So what do you do? Well, some customers, or some, customers don't like this, but that's where the word customer was coming into my head. But designers will just say, well, in order to get the whole image on, I'm going to just put it on so it fits. And then I'll just put a lot of color, or like a colored background, or some other background, whether it's like a pattern or whatever, and that'll fill up the rest of the space. And I think that would be like the biggest no-no ever, because that's really, unless you're incorporating it into the design in some way, that's just showing very clearly to the customer that you don't have an image big enough to fit the whole space nicely. And unfortunately, that happens so often, and it's a shame because the image itself is beautiful, but it's been placed badly on the product, and so therefore you're not going to make a sale. That's just it. Believe us, because we've been there. We've done that with my first products. I also didn't have the image quality proper, and so I couldn't expand it. And you know how Jen said about the image warning sign? Well, I wasn't able to make it bigger because Zazzle doesn't let you make it bigger, because it doesn't let you publish it unless it's like a certain size so that it prints properly. And so I go, well, what am I going to do? I've got this like horizontal image from a photo, and I'm putting it on a round sticker, and I was like, I can't expand it anymore. So what can I do? It's like, okay, I'll add a background color and I'll add some text. So at least I kind of made the best of it. And actually that's one of my first products that sold, but it's not the best product. And it's a terrible grainy photograph of polar bears, by the way. And so I've learned my lesson, and now when I place products, images up on the products on Zazzle, I do a really good job of placing them as if I took that photograph just to make it put it on that one product, and those sell, which is really important because we want you to sell as well.
So you have to be very intentional with your design placement, and as you said, if your photo doesn't actually fit or you need to fill it in with a background image, why don't you try choosing a different product that would actually fit better, and have that product actually look nice and be meant for that photograph or that image that you've chosen, so that the customer recognizes that this is actually, like, it's eye-pleasing, it looks good, it fits, because when you do see those designs on Zazzle where there is a background filler or there's text in random areas, it almost looks a little bit mismatched and sort of thrown together. If you have designs like that, we're not saying that they're bad or that they will never sell. It's just that there's always a better way to have the design placement to increase your Zazzle sales, because in the end, the customer wants to buy something that they like and that is eye-pleasing to them and is fashionable or looks good. And if there's something that there's a disconnect where it just looks like there's a background that's filling in, then they won't resonate with it that much, and they would rather probably choose a different product that's designed by a different designer.
Yeah, and unfortunately we never see those, as Zazzle designers, we don't see those customers going, didn't quite like that. I love the photograph, but here's another one that's, the product is not even, like the design or the photograph may not even be as nice, but it's also of a sunflower or something, and then they'll pick that one because that one actually looks better on the actual product where it's going to be printed. Yeah. And so we don't want you to miss out on those sales, because you probably have better photography than the one that sold that was placed better. And so placement does really factor as a big factor in how the customer perceives the product as quality, and also the way they like the image. So do that extra step and make sure that your images really suit that product type that you're going to put them on. And also, if they don't, then either get another image or figure out a way to make your image look good, but not with the colored background in. Which is unfortunate. Okay, and if you're one of those, I'm one of those too. So don't worry, we're all in the same club. But telling you from experience, those don't sell. except for a couple of sales here and there. But we're not interested in a couple of sales. We're interested in consistent, long-term, profitable sales year after year. And that's what we want you to have as well. Okay, so then the next thing is when we get a little bit more complex, because Zazzle is a place where you can customize your text and add text and also add photos, we want you to realize that that's really, first of all, something to take advantage of.
Yeah.
So if you're coming from other print-on-demand companies and merch, Amazon merch, you want to make sure that you take advantage fully of Zazzle's opportunity to customize things. And so by doing that, though, you also have to create the proper designs and or templates. So you don't just sort of add an image and then that's it. That was the first, two that we talked about. But instead, we want you to understand that there's the opportunity to add sample text and sample photos, and that creates a whole other scope of types of products that you can make and designs you can make. So, and then when you get into those, then you realize, okay, now there's supposed to be sample text in this product, like a name or a monogram, or maybe some sort of text for an event or an occasion or a saying. And that's when you realize, oh, I think I'm a little bit more out of my league. I've got to figure this out. And so you can do that, and then you can go and look for whatever sample text needs to be for that particular occasion, which is what we recommend. Or you can say, sample text here, just add it. And in the past, that has been actually the way that Zazzle would work, because the way that the text boxes were set up, the customer could just easily keep adding and adding and adding. But recently, Zazzle has changed the design tool so that it doesn't always add enough text, or it can go over another piece of text if you set up the templates in a certain way. So we don't want that for you, because that means the customer will be so happy. They're in the middle of writing all their stuff out and adding it so that it looks good, and then all of a sudden, because of the way you've set up the templates or even the sample text, then it really gets them messed up, and they're frustrated, and they'll probably leave. That's a missed sale for you, right? So we'll break it down into two pieces. First of all, the sample text should be very specific and strategic for whatever it is that you're selling. So if it's an occasion especially, then you want to have the sample text be all about that occasion and how people would be, let's say, invited to a party specifically for that occasion. And do you want to add more to that?
Yeah, no, well, I completely agree on that. And you need to give the information properly, because, as you said, we don't actually see the customers behind the computer screen, like typing in their information and stuff. So we don't really know what they're thinking. So we want to guide them as much as possible through the purchasing experience and give them as many examples or prompts to help them through the process easily. So when you do have, for example, a birthday party invitation, you want to make sure that on that birthday party invitation product, you are giving the customer an idea of what kind of information might be present on that invitation. So you want to say the location, the time, the date. You want to say, how you can, donate or buy gifts, or if it's like there's a gift registry, etc., or if it's virtual, or if it's online, if there's more information that you want to include, like a website. All of these things that you would normally add to an actual proper invitation, whether that be birthday, wedding, baby shower, etc. And so you want to make sure that those are present. However, you want to make...
And you do that by creating the sample text itself, as if it looks like a proper invitation. And then that way the customer, because maybe they're not even aware of what needs to be on there, they feel good because, hey, someone actually told me what to write. Right? Instead of just saying, add your text here.
Yeah.
And so you're going to get a lot more sales that way. And then when you design it that way, it also shows the customer specifically where all the text will be and look. And so they'll feel much more comfortable. Like if you walk into an empty house or you're walking into a staged house, the same house, you can see much better what it is that the house would look like and how you could put your own furniture in there and so on. And so this is the same concept. So by adding that sample text in a really staged manner on the item, and we're talking more invitations here, but it also could be any other item that requires text. They'll be able to see what it looks like. And so you want to be able to give them that opportunity to see what it looks like with their text even before they start adding their text. And that's definitely what this point number 3 is all about, is stage your items that you're using the text for and photos with something so they can see exactly how it's going to look.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in quickly and talk about copyright and making sure that your sample text, although you want to give them the most information possible to make them understand what the product will look like in real life and prompt them to put in their own sample or their own text with that sample text, make sure you're not using any names like hotel names or destinations or locations or anything that would be copyrighted material, because you can't obviously use that in your product. You're not selling something to do with that specific thing. And sometimes designers have actually gotten their products taken off the Zazzle marketplace because they're using copyrighted names and material within their sample text.
Also, just because it's sample text does not mean that it's the text that you can use from someone else's design and just copy it over, because that's their copyrighted design. So we want to, it's not just for like big names and things that we might think are copyrighted, but every single Zazzle designer's designs, even their sample text, is design copyright. So we're moving a little bit out of the design things that you can do, but you definitely don't want to do this and violate copyright, because then you're not going to sell your product whatsoever. Then the design doesn't even matter, because you're going to be having your product will be taken off the marketplace, and hopefully you won't be taken off of the Zazzle marketplace, but that's actually happened to some designers. So be very careful to create your own sample text and also your own designs, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked a lot about sample text. Then we also talked about how the customer was sitting there typing in their own information. How does that happen? Well, it means that we as designers, and that's what you need to do too, is make sure that those templates are set up properly. So every place in the entire design that you have that requires the customer to take action to replace the sample text with their, or even a sample photo, with their own information or their own photo, you need to set that up properly as a template. Do you want to talk more about that?
No, you can go for it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, because there's various aspects of the templates. For example, you first of all need to make sure that they have templates so that the actual text or photo can be changed. Otherwise, the customer may not know how to go into the design tool and change it all on their own. And so you want to make it easy for the customer to buy. That way you're more profitable. Secondly, the templates themselves have certain options that allow the customer to then have a defined experience. That's how I'm going to call it. Because if you set up, for example, the photo template in such a way that it says fill, then the way that you set your photo up on the design will actually only allow the, so you've put your photo up, it's the sample photo, then it's in a certain area on the actual design, and then you say template, make this a template, and then you say choose the fill option. Then what's going to happen is when the customer replaces your photo with their own, their photo is going to only fill that area that you've defined by your original design from your photo, which is really important, because if the customer all of a sudden adds their photo and it covers up all the rest of your design, or which is like none, or if you have the customer add their design and you've set the word fit as the option of the template, not fill, so you've said fit, and then it'll actually take their entire photo, depending on what it is. Remember, we were talking about horizontal, vertical, and all that stuff, and it'll literally fit it within that space. So the whole thing, not just some of it. And so it won't bleed to the ends, because it's trying to get the entire thing in. So those two options, other than the fill, are going to create a bad customer experience for you if you set up your designs in a certain way. So be very mindful of how you want to have the customer interact with the photo templates, for example. The same goes for text templates. Do you want to talk about those?
Sure. On the text templates on the Zazzle design tool, when you're creating your text, you'll be able to see that there's like a dotted dash line on the outside of your text box. And this is called the text bounding box. And in your design, you want to make sure that the text bounding box goes all the way to the green lines. And we've talked about this in another podcast and also in some of our other free training in our courses too. We go much more in depth of this. But you want to make sure that when you're creating a text box, you make sure that it's in the green lines, because that's giving you the A-OK that it's great. And then also make sure that the template is checked off as well, because in the design tool, you're able to do this with the photo and also the text. Most of my designs, when I first started out at the beginning, I completely forgot to check that template button off, and then I would post it for sale, and I would lose out on potential customers because most of the customers that come onto Zazzle don't know how to customize further the design besides just having the template option show up on the customized product page. And so when you're creating your text, you want to make sure that those text bounding boxes are to the fullest amount available within your design. If you have some sort of other graphic or image that's covering it up, you want to make sure that your text bounding boxes are in relation to that. And that will make sure that when the customer comes in and inputs their own information, that they will be able to have the most optimal amount of space for their text to go in. And we usually recommend to adding the full amount of sample text that would normally go into a proper product like what you're creating, because this gives the customer the amount of space available for that information to be put in. Because for example, when we mentioned, you can create a product that just says sample text goes here. Sample text goes here are only a couple handful of words, and when they actually create their own product, they're going to be putting in a couple different sentences if they're going to be actually creating, a location, time and date, who to contact, etc. And so if you just do sample text here, then it actually doesn't give the amount of space necessary on the product for the person who's customizing the product to put in the real information that they need on that product. And so you want to make sure that that text bounding box goes out to the full amount extended for the product that you're creating, and then also put in the amount of text that you would probably have, or that a customer would probably input themselves, so that not only does it look good for the customer and they relate to that and they understand it in terms of like the staging example, but also that their text truly does fit in on the product that you're creating.
Yeah. So that's it. Those are the 4 things that are really, really key to helping you create better designs on Zazzle so that you can make more sales. So let's go over them one more time. Image quality is so key. So that's number 1. The second is to do with the design itself, how you're placing the design on the actual product so that it suits it really well and makes it look like it was always supposed to be on that product. And that's what's going to make the difference in terms of sales, because then the customer will just go, wow, I love this photo and it fits so perfectly on my cell phone case, for example. Okay, then the last one is the last 2 are sort of in with each other, because you can't have one without the other. But what you're going to do is create sample text that makes sense for that product. And even if it's just a monogram or a name as a sample text, that's just as important as if you're doing like big complex invitations or things with a lot of text in them, or a lot of photos in terms of photo grids and things. All of these are together to stage the product and make it look as if it already is done, and all the customer has to do is replace the different information rather than figuring out the entire text for themselves. Then, along with that, once they've got the sample text staged, and they can just see that they need to have the text itself be templated properly. So you, as a designer, before you post, have to create those templates properly so that the customer can use them. Even start by thinking about making the templates, but then you have to use them properly and set the proper settings, like photo and the text settings, in order to make sure that the customer doesn't feel frustrated when they're filling out everything. Okay, so those are our 4, and whether you're making complex designs or simple text-based designs, these are 4 things that need to be taken care of every single time in order to make sure that you have the best chance of selling more on Zazzle.
Yeah, so thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.